Avi Meyer's Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine. Early voting is starting this Monday. So get yourself prepared to vote. Pick up your free copy of Jewish Chicago, which will be out for the start of early voting. And if you need to get something in the paper last minute, give me a holler. In any event, I want to introduce you to my next guest. First time he's on the show. He's a state representative from south of Chicago, and he's an Evanston native. I'll let him tell you about himself. And it's David Miller. How are you?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
First of all, pleasure, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And why don't you? So, how long have you been a state rep?
I've been a state rep since 2001, almost 10 years now. I'm serving my 5th term, representing part of South Chicago, but mostly southeast suburbs of Calumet City, South Holland, Dalton, all the way to Fort Heights.
I'm originally from South Chicago, 88th and Commercial.
Oh, a little bit further south and not as far east.
Okay. Anyway, so obviously you've been successful. You're there 10 years, and you're taking a big step up, and you're the Democratic candidate for treasurer.
For a comptroller.
Oh, controller. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's all right. A lot of folks get that confused.
So tell us about what does the controller do?
The controller is the chief fiscal officer of the state of Illinois. It's essentially the person who writes the checks of the book. The treasurer is what you would say, the bank account of the state of Illinois. And currently, as you know, there are 2 separate offices. As controller, I want to bring my healthcare background. I'm a practicing dentist for over 21 years. As you mentioned in your introduction, I grew up here in Evanston, but located in the south suburbs. And my first dental practice was actually in 63rd and Cottage Grove in the Woodlawn community of Chicago.
I know the area.
Yeah, in a sense for me to give back to the community and try to make a difference. And you start to realize that teeth become a bigger symptom than for education and healthcare and access to care. And got more involved in the community, opened a second practice in South Suburban Dalton, and ran for state representative. And so I bring this background to the office of controller. I want to be the chief fiscal officer, but more importantly, the watchdog to know exactly where taxpayer dollars are going.
Yeah. And he's right about teeth, by the way. The reason you don't see me smile as much is I don't want you to know I got a crown missing.
So you're still as handsome as ever, though.
Oh, you're much too kind. And I can see why you're in politics. That's for sure. And before I forget, I want to thank Sam for contacting me and bringing you over here. Sam, what's your last name? I'm sorry.
Strain, S-T-R-A-I-N.
Sam Strain, thank you so much. And we basically made all the arrangements. Okay, are there issues in the campaign?
Oh, absolutely. And particularly, we were dealing with a budget crisis and a ethical crisis. And so first thing we need to know is where the taxpayer dollars are going. You want to know, I want to know, everybody wants to know. So we propose having our budget online, transparent, and interactive. So you or I or Sam or whoever may have some creative ideas on how to solve some of our budget problems and actually know what are real indicators on what's putting pressure on the budget. And as a person writing a check, you can be able to track that. The second thing we need here in the state of Illinois is to create jobs. I opened my office my dental office in an underserved area. If there's some kind of incentive, if I'm doing state business, which a majority of my patients were on public assistance, then those payments may need to be fast-tracked and streamlined as an incentive until you're up and going and get your business up and going to try to provide a package for businesses to locate here in the state of Illinois. And the other part is to penalize companies. If companies are getting tax breaks, companies are circumventing our procurement laws, then you have the power of the purse to try to get at them. And so over the years, I've noticed that we've had budget gimmicks and games. If you shed some light on that, then I believe they'll be able to stop and have citizens have good input into it.
As one of the few people that actually follows these things, when you say budget gimmicks and games, there's like tons of them.
Well, there's a few things that have happened over the past years, regardless of the administration. We've had pension holidays and pension shortchanging the pension system. We've back billed in terms of Medicaid payments. So as a dentist, those bills that were billed this year would only be considered next year. So we don't know really what our budget pressures are on. And as far as our whole structural education system, and so we've offered proposals as a legislator to reform and to make sure that the schools where I represent are on par with Evanston and New Trier and these schools up in the North Shore. And so these are things that have pressures structurally on our financial system here in the state of Illinois. And I want to be able to use my expertise and as a businessman and as a healthcare provider to move our state forward. and really end this politics of the past. I think us as a state need to move our state forward, and I'm able to do that.
No, that sounds good. You know, I can definitely see why you're running. That's for sure. There is a need for to say that there's a major need for improvement in the state of Illinois, that would be an understatement.
But we need to put teeth into that. So
yeah, and crown, please. Seriously, no, that was good. That was a good line, by the way. Yeah, our unpaid pension is like scary. It's frightening.
Exactly. This past session, we voted for some of the reform measures to try to rein in some of the pension cost, and that was structurally a problem. And I believe that's one step. The other step is to know exactly what our pension pressures are. If somebody in a General Assembly now retires, if I retire, you should know what my payments are going to be amortized out in the future. We've had a proposal to have our salaries as state representatives and government officials online, so you know in a timeline, so you know exactly how much I made. It's public dollars. It should be public information that's easy and accessible. And to know that these gimmicks that were being done, so there'd be elected officials or our superintendents who are hired for a period of years in a local municipality would give them a career-end bump, basically doing the same service, and their pension would be based on that last year's bump. And it's just not fair because all the taxpayers are stuck with that. And in light of the recent allegations in California, had some city officials making $800,000, or in Bellwood here in Illinois, that making $270,000 as a village administrator, and knowing that their pension and the people of the state are going to be on that hook. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And so folks need to know not just what a person is making, but throughout their public career, exactly what they're making and how much they've made, to know that we're being honest and forthright with the taxpayers' dollars.
You bring up a really good point, because just in this area alone, there's a number of former states. There's this former state senator and a former state representative. Kara Ronan in particular got appointed by Blagojevich, got a huge bump in her salary, more than double, and then retired 27 or 28 days later, and that's a permanent pension.
That's true, and unfortunately, I mean, you know, I do know former Senator Rowan, and I mean, who's going to argue against it? But I think what differentiates me versus my opponents in this election is that I voted for it, but also I speak against it. And so you have to have these structural changes in our system to be able to move our state forward. Otherwise, we're just going to be dealing with this 20 years from now, and that's the last thing that can happen. And I think that's the last thing people want to happen to our state.
That sounds really good. If people want to contact your campaign?
They can contact our campaign directly at 708-849-7372 or www.davidmillerillinois.com.
www.davidmiller.illinois.com. And for people who didn't have their pencils ready, what was the phone number again?
It's 708-849-7372 or davidmillerillinois.com.
And thank you very much, Sam Strain, and thank you, David Miller, and good
Thank
luck
you.
in the election,
I appreciate
which
it.
will surely be in progress shortly.
Thank you.